I think there are a lot of people in that position that want to take everything that they've learned and move it over to the Blender space. That is the whole point of this course. Everything you need from modeling, texturing, lighting, rendering, animation, not just learning the software, the hard skills of what button to press when, but also learning the logic of Blender and the way that Blender thinks.
All right, Elijah, thank you so much for being on this podcast. I'm sure we've kind of hyped you up here at School of Motion over the past few months, but for anyone who's like, who is this mustachioed person with his hat backwards thinking he's all cool? Who is the man, the myth, the legend, Elijah Sheffield?
Yeah, I'm Elijah Sheffield. I go by Sweet Boy Motion online and on Instagram specifically. I'm a 3D animator and specifically a Blender animator. And I've just kind of gotten plugged into the community a little bit over the past few years, and I've just kind of taken off a little bit more than I was anticipating. So,
which is always, that's a good thing to happen. Like, instead of being shadow banned multiple places and not knowing why, that you got good viewer count. It's actually just a bunch of bots that we paid for that are following you. So you're welcome.
My Twitter is like 6 bots in you. So that's, steadily growing.
We discovered that yesterday. I mean, that's like 33%, or I'm bad with math, but 6 to 7, like that's a pretty big jump.
It's a pretty good ratio. Yeah.
So I want to kind of start way back because you went to SCAD, right? And that's kind of that's a big deal school. Like when I went to school, I didn't go to any place that fancy. But I always like to hear people's story of why did you become such a sicko that you wanted to learn motion design and do motion design? Because I feel like we all have something deep down troubling us that we choose this career that we're in.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, that's absolutely the case. I have a brain injury and, I like seriously, and I can't see things, kind of in the same way that other people see them, because I'm completely blind in this one and mostly blind in this one. So, my whole life, I just saw all kinds of, things in their most basic forms. And so, the motion of things is it's how I told my friends apart, is the way that they walked. That's how I could tell there was a soccer ball, heading my way. It's just the way that somebody, turned their body. So those kind of skills and those sensibilities of just boiling something down to its most basic form, was just kind of a part of my life and my upbringing. And, then on top of that, there was all kinds of I love to draw. I love to paint. I'd play Pokemon for 20 minutes and then run off to my bedroom to go draw my own Pokemon. And it was just stuff like that just kind of compounded. And it was eventually I think this is maybe a universal experience, but, I can draw, but now I want to make it move. And maybe I'll get into photography, but that doesn't really have the storytelling component that I want. So, okay, maybe I'll start to do videography. And okay, well, that's incredibly boring. And now I have to have an editor, or I want to be an editor, and that's even more boring. So eventually I'm just adding things to the tool belt, trying to get to the point where I can create my own stories, create my own gags, jokes, narratives, whatever they are, completely isolated from having to have somebody else involved in the process.
Now, is this totally before you got to school? You were kind of dabbling in all these kind of areas in high school and stuff? Or?
Yeah, actually, I started my undergrad as political science. I don't really know why I thought I wanted to be a politician, but then I started hanging out with those people, and I was like, I don't think so. And then my roommate was graphic design, so I started, kind of dabbling with some of the graphic design stuff. And then I met a guy halfway through undergrad who was doing motion design, and I'd never seen anything like it. It was just really unique and a really cool medium that I just hadn't been exposed to before. So he kind of taught me everything that he knew, but he was kind of in the same situation that I was. We were in the middle of Arkansas, where there's not any real motion designers, or there's not a big, studio, nowhere Arkansas. So he just taught me everything that he knew, and then graduated and took off to LA. And I was just kind of stuck there, just now finding out what frame rate meant and trying to piece together, things. I was watching your tutorials. I was just, which, if I'm at a point where I'm watching EJ tutorials, I'm just
something really bad happened.
Yeah.
So let's give people a little bit of a context, because we joke, because I graduated college in 2004. You're for people that aren't watching, you're a much younger buck than I am.
Yeah.
You don't have the crow's eyes and crow's feet, all those different,
all kinds of crow features.
but yeah, when did you go to school? Cause you graduated within the past like handful of years, right?
Yeah. I started undergrad 2015, graduated 2019. Then I did grad school from 2019 to 2021.
So you went to grad school. So
yes. Yeah.
Is that like a typical thing at SCAD?
Sometimes. So I specifically chose to go to grad school, and I get a lot of flack, especially from like previous coworkers. I think a lot of people are like, "Oh, good, yeah, you went and paid more money to go learn." But
yeah,
I didn't know anything. I had no connections in the industry. I didn't even know what questions to ask. I didn't even know what YouTube videos to watch. I knew literally nothing. So I had like an advisor at college that was like, "Oh, maybe you could try getting your master's in animation, and maybe that would help you and open some things up." And so, yeah, I went and I did that, and I got into SCAD. I got into a few different ones, but SCAD seemed to be pretty prestigious, so I got in there.
Grad school specifically, you got into SCAD, and you went to a different college before that.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. So that's why.
Sorry, that's kind of a confusing timeline.
Yeah. No. Right. It's all a blur. So it sounds like you went to a similar college as I did, where, I mean, that's why I wanted to distinguish what years we're talking about here. Cause when I was in school in like early 2000, like motion design, I don't think that was really even a thing. Like that wasn't even a term. So at least like by the time you were in college, we're talking 2016 and stuff. Like I feel like we got, that's like grayscale gorillas in like full effect. And we still got Andrew Kramer around and stuff. And so that, there's a lot of motion and a lot of shiny spheres going all over the place. But so when you went to college, did they have any type of like animation majors, or like, did you?
Not at my school.
Well, you didn't learn like After Effects or anything?
There might have been like hey, this is After Effects, and like we spent 30 minutes making a ball bounce or something. But yeah, there wasn't really a path. My undergrad was in advertising. And I hated advertising. I thought it was the absolute worst. So then I went to grad school to get away from it, only to end up working back at a advertising post house. So, full circle.
I mean, you're basically, you're making things for marketing at this point. So basically you were getting ready to graduate that college, and you're like, I know 30 minutes. I've spent 30 minutes in After Effects. I don't know what the heck I'm going to do with my life. And so that's when you're deciding like, okay, you've heard of SCAD, and you're like, I need to, if I want to do this, I need to either learn on my own, which I feel like is not for everybody. You definitely have to be a self-starter, but you chose the grad school path. Now, the one thing I would ask is like, okay, so when you graduated college and you went to SCAD, how big of a gap was there between like your skill set and skill set of people that like already went through a few years of SCAD and they were just entering that grad school program? Massive. Yeah. So what was that experience like? Cause I feel like I knew this about you, but as I'm like working through this, I'm like, that must have been like a big eye-opening experience, going from random university that you barely touched After Effects, and now you're in this like actual school, not actual school, but this school for actual
that's fair.
School for actual that actually has like majors in these specific artistic disciplines and all that kind of stuff. So what was that experience like, and how quickly did you kind of make up ground there?
Yeah, so they have kind of a program for people who are coming on board with the the animation program. And they have intensives, so it's like kind of a 2-quarter, like 3 classes over 2 quarters, where you learn the basics, and they really drill you hard into Maya and Unreal, and they just kind of get you up to snuff to some degree. And I mean, even that is still a bit of a runway. And I didn't really care about undergrad. I'll just be real with you. I got degrees. I was just wanted to make cool stuff and kind of get out of there. But when I got to grad school, I was like, okay, this is like the coolest thing ever. It felt like Hogwarts for people who thought a lot like I did, which was super fun. So I actually cared about the classes and actually invested a lot of time, like a student is supposed to. And so for me, getting up to speed was a lot easier, I think, than even some of my classmates that were in the intensive program as well. Just because I wanted to learn so bad. I knew what I wanted to make and I couldn't make it, which is, I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that, of that just being a super irritating feeling of like, if I could just figure out what this tool is. So I was highly incentivized to get up to speed quickly. But once you crack that intensive, the rest was a lot more like specialized type classes.
So did you have to choose a specific major? Because one of the things I found interesting, because when we first started chatting, and we're talking about you making this Blender course, spoiler alert. I discovered that I knew that you knew Maya and that you also learned Cinema 4D. And then you eventually, I don't want to bury the lead here, but then that you also learned things like, you knew Unreal, like you learned that in college and stuff like that. And I just think that's interesting to hear for anyone who's like older, like myself, to kind of get what everyone is like, what the kids are learning in school these days. Cause it's, I feel like what you're getting exposed to in school is something that's like, like I'm just dabbling in like Unreal right now, like taking Winbush's course. And, you just see out there, like you can't just get by with like a Cinema 4D After Effects tool set anymore. It's like there a lot of like there's different clients' needs. We talk about Rive here a lot. Like you got to get into that kind of thing. And so you're having to kind of be exposed to all these different types of disciplines. So I wonder, like when you learned Unreal, like that was just part of like the foundational of like, you need to get up and running here at SCAD to fit in to reach the next level. So they just did this broad stroke kind of thing, or was it specifically the area that you chose to get into?
It's a bit of a like a master's Build-A-Bear almost, to some degree. But I took a class where we had like, it was like a project-based class, and I still remember I rendered something for 36 hours. I think it was about a 36-hour render. And it was just a single image. And so I was absolutely doing it wrong. That is the wrong way. It was in Arnold. I had no idea what I was doing. And it wasn't even, I think it was only 4K. It wasn't even like I was doing something crazy. I was just really doing it wrong. But in doing that, I got a bad taste in my mouth for rendering. And I was like, I don't understand this. I don't like it. So I taught myself Unreal first. And then I was like, oh, that's really cool. And then they had courses that use Unreal. So then I kind of put some of those into my basket as well.
So that was a very self-motivated thing that you're just like, oh, real time. You never thought to like, maybe I shouldn't put subsurface scattering on everything.
No, didn't occur to me.
You put subsurface scattering on the lights and cameras, which I don't even know how that works. Yeah. Probably not a good idea. What was it like when you graduated? Like what skill set did you have? And then what kind of job did you like kind of have your eyes set on as a bushy-tailed, doe-eyed graduate?
Yeah, I was kind of a little bit lost and spun out when I graduated, because like the pandemic happened, it kind of pushed everything online, and so my time on campus was cut short. So kind of the networking stuff was all digital and whatever. You can't.
So you graduated like during the pandemic?
21, beginning of
Holy
21.
cow!
But yeah, so I was doing everything online, so I was like, I might as well just go get a job. So I went and I got like an in-house motion designer role at a durable medical equipment company. So I became an expert in catheters and breast pumps very quickly, which that's not. I didn't really go to school to be an expert in those things, so that was just kind of bonus knowledge.
Oh, I thought that's what your the graduate program. It was just
master's in catheters. Yep. It's an MA actually. But yeah, I didn't. That was. No knock to that industry. That was just very creatively soul sucking to me. And I quickly ran out of steam and I was like, I've just got to get out of here. But graduating SCAD in the middle of also having a job, it was like, Now I have my master's. I'm animating breast pumps and catheters. This is not kind of what I went to school for. This is not what I was hoping for. Yeah.
Yeah. So okay. I feel like everyone's got like, they just kind of take the first job they can get. And so how did you, like, where did you go from there? How long were you at the medical place? And then what was your next gig? And then kind of how did you progress until you ultimately, you're freelance now, but like, what did that look like? Like, cause I feel like there might be a lot of people listening to this that are also frustrated by like where they're at in their career, like what job they're at. So I'm sure they'd be interested in hearing like that insight of like, what do I need to do if I'm in the same situation? How do I move on to the next thing, the next step in my career?
Yeah. I would not recommend the way that I did it. I just I had a few trips of luck. But I think, maybe there's some helpful things in there.
That's always a part of it. You make your own luck too,
Yeah. I bought a sweatsuit at Target, and I decided that this was my work clothes, and I would put them on every day right at 6 or 5 whenever I got off, and I would just work until I was exhausted, and then I would go to sleep. And I did that every single day for about a month until I had a demo reel that I felt was fine, that I felt like it could get me a job. And then I used that to try to go fishing. And I just happened to find an awesome, post house in Dallas that was willing to kind of take a chance on me. And so I moved from North Carolina to Dallas blindly. And but yeah, that job, it was just, I got to the point where I was like, I have got to pretend like my life depends on getting out of this job. And so just having that mentality of, okay, I'm in the corner. I have to perform. I have to do something. I have to move this needle. There's no two ways around it. Pushing myself out of the bounds of, well, it's cushy. It's, I only really work 3 hours a day anyway. Pushing myself out of that mindset really pushed me to get that next gig.
Yeah. I feel like that's a hard thing to settle into as your very first gig. 'Cause you're kind of stunting your own growth there right from the get-go. Maybe if you're winding down your career, that's a nice sweet spot. But so talk a little bit more about, I think it's important for people to know of like, you had a job where obviously you're not putting your catheter animations on a demo reel necessarily.
That's a different demo reel.
When you said you kind of hunkered down, and you made your reel, was that a whole bunch of like personal projects, or like, how did you flesh out that demo reel? Cause I feel like that's a lot of, we do these monthly meetups, at School Motion with our alumni, and, Joey and I will hop on and we'll do reel critiques and stuff like that, which is super helpful. But a lot of it's like, okay, well, you have some decent stuff, you have some not so decent stuff. And then you have like what are obviously some like School of Motion projects in there. And I feel like a lot of the things that people struggle with is how do you beef up your demo reel to get that next job? So exactly what like you did. So do you have any advice to like of what you did, what you think worked? Or if you could go back, like, would you change what you did there? Like, how did you motivate yourself to make these projects to actually flesh out a full on demo reel that actually got you hired at this next gig?
Yeah. For me, it was just, what do I think looks cool? That one, I wouldn't necessarily recommend doing this again. It was a very luck-based turn of events, but I literally storyboarded out my entire demo reel from zero. I had zero things to put in there, maybe something from the job, that like a tiny piece, but I had little vignettes in mind. And so I storyboarded out exactly how I wanted my reel to go. I had sketches with like kind of some color boards as well. And then I just put like an animatic together and like cut it together to some music. And then I just started backfilling, and I started at 1, and I animated this piece, and then I animated that piece and animated this piece. And I was trying to be a little bit intentional to have everything look just a little bit different while having some amount of cohesion. So it was really my first brush with like art direction, of having a little bit more power and control over my own project, where it's like all of these need to look different, but they all need to feel in the same vein that is packaged as Elijah Sheffield. Sweet Boy wasn't a thing at that point, so it was just Elijah, just boring old Elijah.
the artist formerly known as Elijah.
Yeah, exactly.
So I think that's interesting about how, and I believe I've seen that reel before. Or do you still have it up? Is it?
I hope not.
Okay. All
I
right.
hope it's
Maybe
gone.
not. So, okay. So, so then what, cause I've seen your reel before where I really dug it, where it's you're a little caricature.
Yes,
and it's like jumping in the air.
One. Yeah. But I did something similar for that.
Oh, okay. And if for anyone, like, we'll have links to these things in the show notes and stuff, so you can, and we'll dig up his first reel too, so everyone can get a gander at that. No, but so I want to like kind of unwind and spin this a little bit more, because I think a lot of people don't think about how they can strategically build up their own reel. So when you said you like purposefully storyboarded things out specifically to make a demo reel, because I feel like a lot of people do personal projects and they don't think about that bigger picture thing of like, what is this for? If this is a personal project, what's the point of it? What is this showing to a client? What is this showing that I can do for them? And so, like, for your reel, when you were storyboarding things out, where you're like, okay, I want the clients or anyone watching this to know I'm a good storyteller. I can do and even like technical stuff where it's like, I really want to get into like character animation. So like, I'm going to show like rigs and stuff and like rigged characters. And like, what did your first reel like have that showcased your kind of abilities, or what was that strategy there?
Oh man. I don't even know if it was a good strategy. It was, I had seen, I would peruse Pinterest quite a bit, and then I would see something that I was like, oh, that's really cool. I wish this piece was mine so I could put it in my portfolio. I was very envy driven. And so then I would take that and try to kind of recreate it at a base level, whether that's, I'm including some color palettes from that, or an aesthetic, or the same beats. And that was with my first reel. The second reel that I cut was a similar situation where I kind of had a deal with some leadership, where it was like, once you have a reel, we'll make you an associate creative director. And so I was like, okay, well then I'm going to do that. So same thing, I dug in and boarded out a reel, but their critique was I don't have enough variation of style. I only have like one note. So then from that, it was, okay, how can I make different notes, but again, keep it all concise? So it was a lot of trial and error of just finding things I found, a little bit of envy over, and then recreating that so that it fit into my capabilities and my reel.
Yeah, and I feel like that, I'm sure you also were aware of, like, you don't want to put work on your reel that is stuff that you don't necessarily want to do, like the catheter animations. Like, I don't want to do those anymore, so maybe I shouldn't show that I can do those, so I don't get asked to do those in the future.
And that was actually something great about SCAD. They helped teach you how to make a portfolio, and they helped you think about how to make a really strong impression with your portfolio. Yeah.
For anyone that can't go to SCAD, we have a demo reel dash course here at School of Motion. Same kind of thing, and not as expensive as a graduate school degree.
Definitely not. Do that one first.
Yeah, exactly. So let's kind of skip ahead, because you just recently went freelance for just a handful of months ago, right?
Yeah, October 1.
Yeah. Okay. So you've been at it for it's almost like your 2-month anniversary. Congratulations on making the jump there. Yeah. So let's kind of talk about what led you to go freelance. Like, what was like the tipping point? Like, where were you at? Where do you want to go? What are your aspirations now that you have made the jump?
Yeah. Man, the tipping point was just a lot of things. It wasn't one big thing. Like, my boss was horrible to me and I ripped up my paper and walked out. It was a lot less, direct and dramatic. It was a lot of just like, the timing just was right. I had people reaching out, wanting to work with me. I was gaining some momentum. I was working with you guys. And it was a lot of like, I can't really balance all of this. I just got married, so I had benefits even if I dipped, which was great timing.
That's a good thing.
That's actually why I got married. Yeah. Was for the benefits. Yeah. But, no, it just, the timing was really, really good. And then I just, I took a look at where I was and kind of where I wanted to be. And I felt like, okay, these pants don't really fit anymore. I was doing a lot of like editorial support and kind of doing a lot of like slide the supers in from left, which is, that's pretty basic stuff. That's pretty common and natural. But I felt like the studio that I was at was kind of billing more as a editorial and a production suite, and so the design kind of was below and wasn't really bolstered as much. So I felt like, okay, I don't want to be I don't want to undersell myself, and I've got some momentum, so I'll just jump out of the plane.
And so let's kind of talk about you said you had some momentum there, and I feel like a lot of people. I feel like it's hard work and luck. Like there's always some bit of luck, but like I said before, you have to make your own luck by actually doing the work and posting and stuff. And that's actually how I kind of discovered you to even have you on this pod. Like, why are you even on this podcast? Because I found you, I discovered you. I take all the credit for all your success now. That's what that means. Hope you know that. Okay. So you're welcome. And no, but seriously, I found Elijah on Instagram because I spend way too much time there. And I just really dug his work. And I believe when I found some of your stuff was you were starting to do, some reels and like behind the scene kind of stuff. And you actually, your ugly mug was on camera. And so you showed a little bit of your personality, the dry sense of humor and stuff. And so I'm wondering, like, that definitely seems like that played a role, or I guess maybe I shouldn't jump to conclusions. Was it were you getting a lot of opportunities by posting on Instagram or LinkedIn? Because I feel like, especially now, like social media is so weird. Like it feels like everything's fractured. People are going to different sites now. And I feel like a lot of people are like, where should I post? Like what's working for people? So what worked for you? Was it Instagram and posting on there that you had people like DMing you like myself, or?
Not really. I posted on Instagram. Actually, I had a great friend, Miles Bolden, amazing editor. Shout out to him. He was one of those friends that's like, hey, do it. Like egging me on all the time. Like, quit your job. Like all the time. But he was like, dude, you got to start posting. Do the breakdown, tell your jokes, like do your stupid bits, like do all of that. So I started doing that, and I really didn't get any traction. I got my mom liking it. She would comment sometimes. My wife at the time, girlfriend, would reshare my stuff on LinkedIn. It got zero traction. And then I made a terrorism joke about the killdozer, and I made like a little Fisher Price killdozer, and I posted that, and it just went ridiculously viral. Like, well, by my standards, not by other people's standards, I'm sure, but by my standards, I was getting like a crazy amount of responses of like comments. People were talking about the efficacy of the US military in the comments. People were like infighting. It was super weird, but it led to a ton of engagement. And so then I posted something like, hey, if I ever made this like an STL file or a 3D printing thing, would anybody buy it? And everybody was like, yay, I would. So I put it up for sale. Nobody ever bought it, of course, but in doing that, I needed to test my STL file. So I bought a 3D printer and was playing around with that. And then you started posting about 3D printing. And so I reached out to you and said something about 3D printing. And then it just all kind of spiraled from there. But yeah, that is a great example of just a lucky break of I posted this really stupid joke and people just like loved it. And it just went crazy. And then through the domino effect, I just slowly started to get in with the right people and meet the right people just by commenting, DMing, liking, all kinds of stuff,
Yeah, I think that's something I actually forgot. You keep reminding me about the 3D printing thing. Like that's actually how we started talking. Had nothing to do with motion design or anything at all. It was just you reached out and I think I just got my 3D printer. And so I was like super hyped about it. And so, I think that's where I think I knew about you anyways. And then like that just kind of made me like, all right, because when someone DMs you, you're like, all right, let's check out this person's profile and see if they're posting any really terrible jokes about, whatever. And I should like block them or something. For some, against my better judgment. And I think that's important to say is that it's not just, posting and then just leaving it. Like you have to engage. Like I always love, like I've actually been doing a thing lately where, instead of worry, I feel like we become like kind of selfish in a way where it's like, I'm only want to post and see who's posting on my things and commenting on my things. And we're not doing the other part and like hyping other people up. So what I've been trying to do purposefully now is like not worrying so much about like, oh, do I post a story? Like I need to be sure I'm like always showing up on that top bar of Instagram, and worrying less about that and worrying more about like, am I giving love and encouragement to the people that I enjoy and I really appreciate their work and their style, or they inspire me and I want to let them know that. Cause I think what you'll find is that not a lot of people do that. So when you actually do that and you reach out to someone and say something nice, like you might make their day, their week, whatever.
Oh, yeah.
That's a totally other thing. But as far as just being a nice person and engaging, but yeah, you never know, like if you say hi to a studio and you say you really enjoyed this, that, or the other, and you just leave it at that. There's no ulterior motive, even though there might be in the background of like, I want to work at this place. I'm going to throw a little, like your Cupid with the arrow and you're just shooting little darts every now and then. Cause you never know when they might, be wore down by you and just be like, okay, you want to work here? We'll hire you. Or you have no idea what.
Stop DMing me. We'll hire exactly. Yeah. You actually comment a lot of rage bait on my posts, so I'm not sure what you're talking about with positivity there, brother.
Well, that's because, for any outside observer, we behind the scenes, if you ever see, being very mean to Elijah in his comments section, it's all in good fun. You should see our Slack DMs. It's out of control, but it's all in good fun. We have fun here at School of Motion, of course. But yeah, all that to say is like, I'll get down on my high horse that I'm like such a nice person commenting and putting fire emojis on people's thing. Well, that's another thing. Don't just put fire emojis, like say something actually nice to people.
I've started setting aside like 10 to 15 minutes a day to just comment and like and follow people. And I've seen a lot of like returned engagement. Like people that are like ride or die fans now. They just comment on all my stuff. They like all my stuff. They share my stuff.
Yeah,
it's great,
that's awesome.
Because it's reciprocal.
Yeah, and I always say is that I hear so many people that are like, I post something and I only get like this many likes and and it's like, is that the whole reason why you're like making art? Is because you just want people to like it? And so that's one thing. But number two is like, it only takes one person, the right person that like, that's a CD at a studio that like finds your stuff and discovers you and is like, wow, Elijah's, except for that one weird joke, like he's actually got a lot of really cool stuff on there. And
except for the kill.
Man, there's this one iDesign guy that really hates him in his comments. I don't know what that's all about, but seems like a nice guy. I feel bad for him. I should hire him. But yeah, you never know. So it seems like posting on social media has been helpful for you, but how has Freelance kind of, because you're only a couple months in. How has Freelance treated you?
Yeah. I've done a couple jobs, since freelancing, and my focus over the last 3 months has been get my YouTube stuff up and going, finish out, this course with you guys, and then I'll take some freelance jobs here and there, so I don't feel like a deadbeat. But both jobs I've done have been smooth. They've been great, and I got my beak wet. Now I'm really excited in the new year to jump back into it and get really into the freelance gigs.
Sorry to jump in, but if you are digging this podcast episode and you're wanting to finally take the dive into Blender and learn what all the fuss is about, our guest Elijah Sheffield himself has created an amazing new course called Blender for 3D Artists here at School of Motion. And if you're already familiar with 3D software like Cinema 4D or Maya and you want to add Blender to your toolkit, this course is going to be perfect for you. In just a few hours of training, Elijah is going to help you translate your existing 3D knowledge and get it into Blender's workflow. And you're going to cover everything from modeling to texture texturing to animation and rendering. You're going to learn through real world projects and gain the skills needed to start using Blender professionally. Head on over to schoolofmotion.com to learn more about Blender for 3D artists and start kicking up your motion design a little notch there. Now, let's get back to our conversation. When you jumped to freelance, it wasn't just like, okay, I'm done, I'm just doing this. Did you have some gigs lined up? You mentioned that you had some type of security, like
I had a wife.
You had a wife, yeah, exactly. So yeah,
if you're gonna jump to freelance, get married. That's the
Because I mean, I always when I went to freelance, and this was 10 or so years ago, but one of the big things was like, oh yeah, you should definitely have a certain amount of money saved and set aside, so just in case, especially if you don't have any gigs lined up right away, you're not panicking. And I guess that'll pivot to like, so what if you're not panicking and you're like, okay, you know what, I planned for this, I can now work on personal projects, cut a new demo reel or anything like that. So, and I've noticed like you have a lot of these side projects, like you're doing your YouTube videos. How much of like your time, like, do you have to set time aside for personal project? Like, is that like a very like premeditated thing where it's like, I need to make sure that even if I'm doing client work, like I need to set some time out to do the personal work? Because for you, personal work is almost like your own type of marketing.
Yeah. I love doing personal work. It's, I think deep down, aside from being an animator or whatever, I'm a comedy writer, and I love having the opportunity to write just really stupid bits and really stupid jokes. But that's also like a really big part of what keeps me motivated, what keeps me educated, what keeps me in the loop with what's going on in the industry, design trends, all that. I can experiment, and I don't have anybody that's going to see it and tell me, no, don't do that. So, that's a huge part of just kind of the sweet boy process of staying relevant. But as far as balancing goes, there was like a month ago, I had a freelance project. I was finishing up recording, and I was still trying to do YouTube videos and all kinds of stuff. And on top of that, trying to be a new husband that has its own responsibilities. And, we live in a house that's falling apart. So, just a billion things. And so I would literally, like a psychopath, segment out my day into 3-hour blocks where it's like, don't talk to me, I'm working on this. And EJ, if you would have like slacked me while I was in the freelance block, ignored. Goodbye. You don't exist in this 3-hour block. In between those 3-hour blocks, you exist again. But I just did that for client project, personal projects, YouTube videos, housework, School of Motion, all that, just segmented out. And it was hellish for like a month of just like, I feel so like stretched thin, doing all these different things. But then as you continue to hammer on it and continue to make time for it and stay really regimented, the amount of time that you have to put into each bucket kind of shrinks because the client project goes away. The amount of content that I have to put out for YouTube, that kind of shrinks because I'm getting ahead. So those barriers and those time gluttons shrink as you continue to hammer through. But especially like right out of the jump, I was busy.
Okay. So you got busy right away with client stuff. And when you said you stretched yourself thin, that was at the very beginning.
Yeah, maybe like 3 or 4 weeks in. Yeah, I had a week of drop shock, I think is what it's called, where you're like, oh, what do I do? So I played a lot of Fortnite that week, and then
it's like I could do anything or I could do nothing.
Yeah, do nothing. I think that will actually help me. But no, I finished up my reel and got like kind of my business plan in place and just kind of got my life in order. The second week, it was like, I'm reaching out to people, I'm cold calling. The third week, cha-ching, found somebody. And then it was like a month of just getting beat by a stick. So, well,
I think that's helpful too, because, you even mentioned now it seems like you're go all the time. And I feel like when we switch job, like I have some friends that they like switch jobs and they have no downtime, and they have like traditional jobs that you only get, if even that, 2 weeks of vacation. Like if anyone's listening from Europe and all this stuff. Like we don't get all your dang vacation time in the States. We barely, especially creative people that work at, studios. Like we're lucky if we actually do get those 2 weeks anyways. But I think it's important. Like those are the times that, I know people that take no time off at all. I know people that just go on sabbatical and they're like, you know what? I'm going to travel Asia for a month or whatever, because you only get so many of those opportunities in your life between, hopefully you're not switching jobs every year. Typically, you stay at a job for a few years, but I think it's smart that you had, give yourself some grace. Don't feel bad that you worked your butt off to, you're moonlighting, you're building your reel and stuff, and like give yourself some break. Try not to burn yourself out, because it's not like, you have those opportunities very often to just kind of play Fortnite for a week or whatever, and it's like, it didn't hurt you long term. It's fine.
No, I mean, I'm on sabbatical right now. I took the month of December all the way off, and
there you go. Yeah. See?
Yeah, what I'm doing with it is working for School of Motion, making a short film, doing YouTube videos, working my butt off, and it's been horrible.
But I mean but that's the thing though too, is that, and I wonder if you're like, what those freelance projects that you've gotten so far. I mean, we got a small sample size, but like, has those things been creatively fulfilling for you? Because I feel like a lot of people maybe fall into this trap of like, okay, every single freelance gig or any single job or project I work on has to be creatively fulfilling, and I have to like, let my creative person free. And it's like, if you're doing a catheter ad or you're just doing lower thirds and stuff, like I feel like you could be very disillusioned very quickly, of like, you start to resent the job, where it's like, well, your job title isn't to, lay your creative soul bare for this Clorox wipes ad or something. Like sometimes you just got to do the job. And if you want to kind of express yourself, I feel like that's where you can let out some of that. I don't know if it's creative frustration or something, like all that creativity that's pent up that you can't release at work. Like you do that in your own personal time. Do you find like that keeps you kind of balanced, where it's like, even though a freelance project comes in, it might not be the best thing ever, but I'm not gonna, like, it's paying the bills, and you know what? That's going to allow me to actually do more of what I want to do. And that's not through the lens of a client project. That's my own thing where I have full control.
No, I think that, a guy I really respect one time told me that he tries to have the most amount of fun that he can possibly have in a day. And he was like a finance bro. So I don't know how he's having fun, but regardless, I love that. And I'm not always super good at doing that. I get the blues while doing really technical work and really annoying client feedback. But for the most part, I can kind of zoom out a little bit and be like, oh, I'm playing all day. I'm making stuff. I'm goofing around. I don't have to go into a sewer. I don't have to go into a mine. I don't have to go and, try to sell things to people that hate me and want me gone. I have a pretty cushy gig. And so then, kind of having that mindset of, I just want to have as much fun as I can. I think that helps kind of keep the fire going creatively. But then, there are also projects. I did a project, like right out of the gate, where I was doing an ad for a mental health facility, like a patient intake thing, where they give their clients dogs when they first get there, and then over the 90 days they get to raise the dog and then they get to keep them. That was amazing, and I had almost full creative control. Like, that's a unicorn project. It was amazing. But then the next one, it was like, model all these super technical things. So it's give and take.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's like, if you read Joey's freelance manifesto, it's the pain and rainbows kind of.
Pain and rainbows.
Yes. Yeah, exactly. So you had your pain, you had your rainbows, and you've only been doing this for 2 months. So
yeah,
right. You're tasting the rainbow. Speaking of pain, let's talk about Blender.
That's an amazing segue. Yeah, that's great.
No. So let's talk about, like, you started getting into, did you learn Blender when you were in school? Like, they didn't teach you that in SCAD or anything like that. So what was like your journey, like, where you kind of first decided like, I'm going to download this and pay all that money to download Blender. No, wait, no, it's free. I forgot.
It's free.
So what kind of led you to dive in, and then like to the point where now like you're basically full-time in Blender, right? So let's kind of hear about that journey, how you first got hooked and where you're at today.
Yeah. I mean, like I said, I learned Maya and ZBrush in grad school, and that's kind of what I used just for like fun projects. And then once I got my full-time job, they weren't really interested in shelling out for like a Maya. I don't even know what it cost at that point, but Maya and ZBrush, they weren't really interested in paying for that, but they were like, hey, we can give you this cinema license. And I was like, great. So then I learned cinema and I got super into that. And then my job kind of pulled me away from cinema quite a bit. And especially like moving jobs, I started working in After Effects a lot more. And then I started playing with cinema again. And I had this idea, like a really weird, I don't even know where it came. I think like a lot of my jokes and a lot of my ideas come from like half-baked dreams that I have. And then I wake up in the morning and they're not that funny, but I still just pursue them a little bit. But I think this came from some kind of like half-baked dream, but had this idea to do a digital museum, and it was called Museum of History and Magic. I think it's still online. But it was this like digital archive of like made up stories and jokes, and some real history, some, fantastical history. And I just wanted to build it all in 3D and have these like beautiful fly-throughs and like all these different exhibits and whatnot. And I was careful about the awkwardness of using company property to make my own IP. And so I was like, well, I'll kind of use Blender because it's free. I think I could learn it pretty quickly. I'll use that to actually make this thing. So I downloaded it and started learning it specifically to make this museum nonsense. And then I just kind of fell in love with it. I used the modeling tools and I was like, oh, this is great. And I was like, well, I'm already here. I'll animate in here. And the animation was great. And I was like, well, grease pencil's really cool. The real-time rendering's really cool. So I just kept doubling down on these different pieces and eventually kind of found my niche of how to make Blender kick out a product that I wanted.
I feel like there's a lot, and I feel it's kind of funny because I've found more and more, because I love characters, and I got my Gus character, this pug character, and like I want to get more into that type of world. It's just like if you see my wall back here, I just collect all these little vinyl toys and stuff. So I just love character design, and I want to get more in doing character design. And most of the time, like as an educator, I just kind of like I made it and I don't want to spend too much time on like doing the rigging and the whole process. Like I just do a little vignette and then move on to the next thing. But like all the character people that I really enjoy seem to be like Blender artists. So I like as an outsider, I feel like that's kind of like its strong suit, and just the aesthetic. And I really enjoy your style. And like, I think like your personality really comes through that too, which I think, everyone is trying to figure out how do they stand out from the crowd. And I think like you like did something genius, because I mean, you having a background in, like you said, you like to do like improv comedy or you like the comedy writing and stuff like that. Yeah. And so I think that's such a super huge thing, because I feel like me personally, like I can't tell a story to save my life. But like I love that you kind of show that when you put yourself in your work, that's how you can start to kind of stand out for the crowd. And I feel like maybe there's not enough artists out there that are like, if they ask themselves to be like truthful, like, are you putting yourself, are you showing a little bit of your personality? Is that coming through? And is that reaching the client or the viewer? Because I mean, I feel like that's why you make animations to begin with, right? Like whether you're selling something, like you want to connect with the viewer, the consumer, the client. So I think what you're doing is super smart. But I wonder, like I'm just interested because like you're like we'll post and show like some of your work and stuff, and like your style is so whimsical, and you're exploring a lot of different things too, which is super cool to see. Like I feel like you're getting in the grease pencil, and that lends itself to the very Like you have some stuff that's the painterly work, like you got the ninja, the animations there. What, because I always love hearing what artists' influences are as far as the style and stuff goes. What was your influence, and like how long did it take for you to kind of find your style that you're at now? And do you feel like where your style is now, or like, are you super happy with it? Or are you going to continue like going with it and see where it goes?
No, I've peaked. I don't think I've ever learned any new tools. No, not at all. I hope to grow. I hope to learn. I hope that, I can keep proving myself wrong with the way that I'm doing it. A huge influence for me, just from more of a theoretical and like less hard skill. Like I love Norm Macdonald. I think he's one of the funniest comedians ever. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he just makes himself laugh, and that's his whole shtick. Is he thinks that he's so funny, and that is, he doesn't care if other people get it. He doesn't care if other people enjoy it. He just doubles down on what he thinks is funny, and like I love that, and I love that approach to art. I love that approach to life. Of I just want to entertain myself, and so everything that I make, every style that I pick up, every stupid story that I make, I'm just trying to entertain myself. It's great when it intersects with what people want to see and when it resonates with other people, but I'm selfish and I want it to resonate with myself. And now stylistically, I mean, obviously, Pixar and DreamWorks have huge influence on the way that I animate, the way that I texture. I can't even hold a candle to them, but I mean, even stuff like the Spider-Verse and the Ninja Turtles and Arcane and all of these neat experimental animation pieces. Those are just so inspirational. And I've taken a few detours with my style of like, I want to figure out how to make this like kind of look like a living comic book. That was something I did for a while, and I think it's developed now to the point where my style's kind of like pseudo realistic with like the textures and the lighting, but maintains kind of comic-y, I don't know if comic-y is the right word, stylized proportions. Yeah, stylized proportions and more over the top dramatic looks. And I think that really lends itself to, oh, what a cute little camper. Oh, he just got, ripped in half by a bear. It creates that visual dissonance even more, and it makes, I think, punchlines really slam harder,
Yeah. And I think that, like I said before, I feel like that style, that aesthetic, the stylized stuff, again, it just seems like, I don't know if it's a lot of, like illustrators are coming into Blender because there's no financial barrier to get in there. And that just seems to be, at least that's like what's in my feed. It's not like I'm seeing like a lot of like traditional Octane space renders and like super hyper real. It's always like I'm a huge Nintendo fan. Like I don't have a PlayStation, and I feel like it's just like, it's the Nintendo aesthetic of like very bright saturated colors, like bright lighting. And I feel like you don't see a lot of like photoreal renders or anything like that either. But yeah, it's just kind of interesting that's, at least like as an outsider, that's what I see with Blender. And I wonder if that's like, did that resonate with you when you picked up Blender 2? It was like, oh, I like doing character stuff. I'm seeing like a lot of Blender artists using Blender to achieve that result, and the grease pencil and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah. I mean, the barrier to entry for like that aesthetic is so ridiculously low in Blender, like lower than Cinema. With Eevee, the real-time rendering engine, and all kinds of like tools and workflows to get a more stylized, more kind of cutesy, kind of plasticky look. It's way easier to achieve that, and takes really no effort to get there, like right out of the box.
Because Eevee, for anyone that might not be aware, Eevee's like is it like their real-time render that's like game engine, kind of like the Unreal Engine render kind of deal?
Yeah, it's a real-time renderer, and I don't want to speak out of turn. I think they entirely rewrote it. For like 4.2
Eevee Next or whatever.
Yeah. So it's pretty powerful. It's pretty good. It's still not like, I mean, you're not going to shoot anything out of Eevee and people be like, wow, is that Redshift?
Right.
But it's still pretty good for like low level lifting, and I think like previs specifically is how I use it.
Well, actually, you mentioned that the the barrier to entry for the style of work that you like to do is very low. And I wonder if that's like you learned Maya, you learned ZBrush, you learned Unreal, you learned Cinema, you learned Blender. I feel like constantly learning all these applications and already having the 3D knowledge, like I'm sure that helped lessen the learning curve of Blender. But like one of the things I hear from a lot of people is that it's not the easiest software to learn, even coming from, people who already know 3D. And I can only imagine, learning 3D in general is very hard. Right. But I feel like in Blender, it's especially so like, I know a lot of people don't kind of beat around the bush of like, well, Cinema 4D is easier to learn than Blender just because XYZ. But did you find it was hard or easy to transition skills from Maya, Cinema 4D over to Blender, or did you have some sticking points?
That's a great question. I think that a lot of, like you said, I think a lot of people get hung up on the fact that like Z is now up. You have to do hotkeys. I was a hotkey user in Maya. Like I loved it. So that translated pretty easily. I'm just like on a keyboard. I don't want to have to move my mouse all the way over. That seems like a complete waste of time. I'd rather just hit a button and it do it, which is great. That's what Blender is. It's a lot of button hitting. But for me specifically, at first it was like, okay, this is not what I'm used to. This is a little bit different. And I did a whole bunch of different tutorials. A lot of them kind of either like assume that you know absolutely nothing about 3D, which is kind of aggravating. They're like way too hyper specific of like, I don't even know like what you're trying to get me to do here. So the way that I went about learning Blender, and I think this is it's probably pretty common, but it's certainly, I think, one of the better ways to learn Blender, other than the 3D course that we're plugging here. Other than Blender for 3D artists, I think a really good way is to just come up with an idea, come up with a project. That's what I did, and it wasn't this, but it was something like, okay, I want a duck to waddle in and lay an egg. Okay, step one, got to make a duck. So how do I model a duck? There's probably not a video that's going to show me how to model a duck exactly the way that I want to model it. So now I have to find something that's comparable and learn how to model in Blender and use the Blender modeling tools. Okay, well, now I got to rig it. Now I have to animate it. And so having that mindset of, I know what I want and I'm not willing to cut corners to compromise on this creative vision that I have, it pushes you to say, okay, there's a fence here. I don't know it. I don't know how to get around it. So I just need to figure out how to blow through it. And that's how I learned Blender. And it took me maybe 3 months to get to the point where I was like, yeah, I think I could do a client project on this, but I didn't have anybody to translate words, which, sorry to ramble and rant here, but that to me was the most valuable thing out of going to SCAD, was somebody just telling me the right words to Google. Somebody just telling me, hey, this is the question you should be asking, and helping me read documentation and all that different stuff. And then I now had the right vocabulary, the right understanding of what is what. So I knew what to Google. I knew what to pursue myself. And that doesn't really exist in the Blender space. Didn't exist in the Blender space. But now, with us, it kind of does now a little bit.
Well, it's like you don't, it's good that you mentioned that, because like as a new 3D artist, you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what topology is. Yeah. And so, like I said, when you're learning 3D in general, it's super hard. And especially when, there's so much content out there on Blender, and that I feel like you got your typical donut tutorial, and then I feel like outside of that, it's like the Wild West, and and it's no matter what subject you're dealing with. Like I started learning ZBrush over the summer and up until now, and man, like tutorials and tutorial artists are not all created equal. Like there's some stuff that I learned that were from like absolute amateurs that I had to learn the hard way, that like they were teaching me the wrong ways to do things. And I feel like there's like, I've been trying to learn Blender for a while now. And I've like, with your help, I've like finally started to like, I feel like I've made a little bit more progress, where now I can open up Blender and not feel like I need to throw my monitor across the room. and it's starting to make a little bit more sense because it's not the sexiest thing of like teaching you like, here's what topology is, or this is what this is called in Maya and Cinema 4D, and this is what it's called here, and this is how it works here, and learning holistically how Blender works. And it's kind of like if you want to learn Cinema 4D and you just got this surface level information and people are just throwing shortcut keys at you and you're getting overwhelmed by that. And they're not describing like, well, Cinema 4D is object based and hierarchy based. And so none of the things I'm doing make sense to you because you don't know that aspect of it. And I feel like that's with anything, like with ZBrush, like what the hell is a subtool? And like a lot of things aren't telling me that because that's not sexy. And so like you're only getting some puzzle pieces and you can kind of see like, okay, this is a bear eating a camping person, I think, but, and I feel like that's where a lot of people could get super frustrated. And I wonder if that you ran into that yourself, even though you also knew some, like you knew a lot of 3D actually, like you knew in a lot of different apps.
Yeah. And Blender's just got its own logic with the modifiers and with like geometry nodes and the way that the material systems work. It's all really unique, but it doesn't translate one-to-one all the time. Like with a lot of stuff, if I was going from like Cinema to Maya or back and forth, I could be like, okay, what is a loop cut in Maya? And I can just Google that really quickly. What's a loop cut in Maya? And it'll tell me, no problem. Google will tell me, no problem. But something like Blender, where it's like, okay, what is a modifier? Like, why am I using this? What is it? What is it in place of in Cinema? Well, there's no one-to-one direct, correlation. It's loosely like this, and it's loosely not like this. And then kind of combining that knowledge and kind of relearning a new system, I think is what this course is all about, and a huge gap in a lot of the tutorials and the education system of Blender right now.
And so because we're talking about this course and a lot of people will be like, what the hell is this course? We should maybe talk about what this course is.
Yeah, maybe I shouldn't have plugged it as much. My bad.
No, it's perfect. And I think what this course and why, like me selfishly, like I wanted to, bring you, Elijah, on to do it too, is because number one, why I chose you and why I deserve all the glory for this super smart decision to have you teach this course is because number one, you actually use Blender on client projects. You're not just some YouTuber who does it in their part-time, like on their own. Like you worked with Cinema 4D artists at your old job, right? And you were in a production pipeline and all that kind of stuff. And you have that like, reference point of, hey, if you know Maya, if you know Cinema 4D, this is how this translates. Like you just don't know Blender as in a vacuum,
a purist,
and don't know like what problems will actually crop up when you're in a client project. They actually have to deliver to a client because a lot of the stuff out there, a lot of people that are using Blender are hobbyists and they never have had to deal with like a client or even know like the most optimized workflows and stuff like that. So let's actually let's go back a little bit, because at your last job, did you start with Cinema 4D and you worked with other Cinema 4D artists and then you switched to Blender and then you still, were working in that pipeline? So how did that
made a lot of people upset?
Yeah. So walk me through that and like how you fit in there. Cause I'm sure there's a lot of people here that might be in the same situation that you were, where you're like, I want to learn Blender, but man, like I'm at my job where it's all Cinema 4D artists or they're Houdini artists. And I'm worried, like, how do I make that work?
Yeah. Well, get ready to be bullied quite a bit. Get some thick skin, and, if you're going to learn Blender, that's good. But no, I think, having the mindset of I'm going to use this tool and I'm going to use this tool for what it's really good at. And I'm going to try to integrate that with its weaknesses, because for me specifically, it was a lot of, there were things that everybody else was going to be working on different pieces in Cinema. And then they were like, hey, Elijah, can you handle this? And I was like, oh, I could, but this component of it, character, modeling, whatever, this component of it could be way better. It could be done way better in Blender. So I would then take that, I would do that little piece, export it as an Alembic, export it as a, an OBJ or FBX, and then we would use it in Cinema. Vice versa, there were some things that I was just doing. I was running point as a ACD on a project, and I was like, I can't get this in Blender where I want it. And I have to hand it off to somebody so I can go do something else. And, after handing it off, it was like, he totally just took it in Cinema and ran with it and got it to where it needed to be, then kicked it back to me and we finished in Blender. So there are a lot of situations where you can do both or either and just kick it back and forth and it's totally fine.
It's the right tool for the job. That's what,
Absolutely.
when we have the render wars and all that crap that I think are finally dead, but it's like, it's not what software is best. It's what software is best for the job that you have to do.
Yeah.
And I 100%. Think the one thing I've discovered, like working with you as you've been making this course, is that I'd have questions of like, wow, that's really cool. That's a lot easier to do than Cinema, or Cinema doesn't have that. Mm-hmm. And then there's other times where it's like, well, can you do that? How hard is it to like, I think one of them was like, how do you clone a bunch of different random objects and then randomize their position and stuff like that. And there's a lot of like geometry nodes set up kind of deal. And it's like,
it's a long,
you just don't do that. And you just don't do that kind of thing in Blender. Like that's a Cinema 4D thing. So I think that's important for people to understand too. It's like, nothing can compete with Cinema 4D as far as the cloners and the MoGraphs and the effectors and stuff. And if you were, because I think the mindset of some people is like, okay, well, if I'm a Cinema 4D artist, I'm going to expect to go to Blender and like do everything the same way. And it's like, no, that's not, like, you have to have the right expectations, learning some things. And I think, as you, and know that if you want that kind of clonery type of stuff, well, actually there's like some guy making a plugin or an add-on and stuff. So there's always these things which might have a cost associated with them. But it might not be that one-to-one, but I think that's important for people to kind of know, is like, Blender's not good at everything. Cinema 4D is not good at everything. So you have to figure out, like, when you're learning anything, you have to have a purpose for it. So for me, like Blender, like I feel like I have the same view as a lot of people, where it's like, I want to learn this because grease pencil looks cool as hell. Yeah. And like, I feel like, and maybe that's a good question. Like, how hard is it to learn Blender and then learn grease pencil? And I want to like promote your course here too, because I feel like what we wanted to do with this course was someone like me that already knows Cinema 4D, or it's an artist that already has learned a 3D app before. I was like, I want a course that could teach me Blender, and by the end of it, know enough about Blender holistically that I can start to dabble in grease pencil. And like at the end of the course, like you just actually got done recording the video where you show grease pencil. And actually, like once you get through and you understand how Blender works, grease pencil is actually super easy to use, And I was kind of shocked, because it was like, I was like, make a bonus video on grease pencil. And you're like, yeah, sure. And then I see the output and I like the review video, and it's like a 7-minute video. And I'm like, did you half-ass this? Like, and I watched it. I'm like, oh no, that's like, you covered everything in 7 minutes to like get going doing grease pencil stuff, and even like cell animation in it too in 7 minutes. And I'm like, oh, so it's those things that like is pretty crazy. And these are the things that we can talk a little bit more about what is in the course. But yeah, I mean, like by the end of it, you're sitting there with Elijah and he's doing a 7-minute video, getting you up and running in grease pencil, no fluff, no filler, and you're ready to rock and roll. So let's talk about, who this course is for. It's called Blender for 3D Artists. What can people that sign up for, what can they expect to learn? And at the end of it, what can they be expected to be able to do from there on? Like, are they ready to rock a client project by the end of it? What are we doing here?
Definitely. I mean, yeah, it's kind of what we've been talking about this for a lot a lot of this podcast, it is just that Rosetta Stone between, Cinema, Maya, some ZBrush, but I want to be over in Blender. I've actually had a few people reach out to me and say, hey, I've been thinking about going over to Blender, or hey, I'm, Blender curious and I want to learn Grease Pencil. What's the runway to do that? And I just tell them, hang on, just hold on a few months. It's coming. But I think there are a lot of people in that position that want to take everything that they've learned and everything that they've, kind of been hoarding over here and move it over to the Blender space and get up and running really quickly and not have the 3 months of beating their head against the desk trying to figure out, what the hotkey to move a cube is. So that is kind of the whole point of this course, is a very just crash through. You're a 3D artist. You know what you're doing. We're not talking down to you. We're giving you the full gauntlet of everything you need from modeling, texturing, lighting, rendering, animation, all the way through. And along the way, you're getting some great project practice. We're throwing you your own faux client projects that you can go through. You're going through a lot of real world simulated issues, and not just learning the software and not just learning the hard skills of what button to press when, but also learning the logic of Blender and the way that Blender thinks. And so when you do hit a problem in a real world, scenario, and I'm not there to, give you a tip or trick in a 7-minute video, enough of the logic and how to think, the right questions to ask, and you can apply that logic all the way down. So that's kind of what the video is. And yeah, that's kind of what the course is. Yeah.
I think we're at is it 7 hours or 8 hours when it's all said and done. So it's not it's not like a typical School of Motion course that's 30 hours long. Like my Cinema 4D classes, they're beefy. This is if anyone's out there that's taken our Jonathan Winbush Unreal course, it's about the same length, and it's the same jam-packed type of guided course that gets you through a lot of client projects, like simulated briefs and stuff that allows you to test your skills. And yeah, you come out the other end a really awesome Blender artist. And one of the things too that I really enjoy is that I think we're talking about style, and you're not a lot of people are out there teaching Blender through the lens of a motion graphics-y kind of thing, and stylized rendering and stuff like that, which I feel like you're leaning, your style really leans into the strengths of Blender. Cause like we said, EV is great. It's a real time thing, but it's almost like Unreal. Unreal's getting a lot better with the photoreal type of stuff. But at the end of the day, it's a game engine, and there's a lot of hacks you got to do to even make glass look right. And you even talk about that in the course too. There's one little switch to make glass look super photoreal in Blender. And so, there's things like that where if you like Elijah's style, this course is perfect for you. But even if you want to do more photoreal type of stuff and product ads, we even have a whole lesson in there, how do you do that and get really nice lighting, and what boxes do you need to check with the render so you push cycles that last 10%.
Yeah. It's absolutely, the classic drawing class where you have to learn how to draw hyper-realist stuff, and then you can choke it back to do more proportion cartoon stuff. Same kind of thing. We learn the basics of how to make something look good, how to zero in your taste in Blender, and then you can just push it all the way to photoreal if you want, and there's not really that big of a ramp to do so.
Yeah. So I think this course, you let me know what you think, who this course is for and why they should take it. Why don't you do your little elevator pitch?
Yeah. It's for people who already know cinema and people who already are 3D artists who are interested in jumping ship and coming over to Blender, or just learning Blender enough to be able to use something like Grease Pencil or geometry nodes, and having that translated in a very concise and quick and interesting way.
Yeah. And the last thing I want to hit on here too is, and it's something that I had to, we had conversations at the very beginning of the course. Cause again, like time and time again, it's always there's so many shortcut keys you have to learn. And maybe like you love doing that and you're like, you love playing the keyboard like a piano, which we mentioned while we're talking through all this stuff. But there's also like how I teach Cinema 4D and how like, at least how my brain works is like, sure, teach me the shortcut key, but then like show me where that thing is in the UI, because I feel like once you start doing that, because I think even you found where something was in the UI, you're like, I don't know. Like, I just know the shortcut key. I have no idea where that is in the UI.
Yeah.
And then you're like, oh, it's up there. And then I feel like that also gives you an opportunity to learn Blender more holistically, because like, if you just know the shortcut key, you just know that one thing. But if you go into the menu, you're like, oh, there's the loop cut and there's this modeling tool, exactly. And all the shortcut keys are there. So how I like to learn is like, show me where it is in the UI, so I know where all the modeling stuff is. And Blender's a whole new app, so you don't even know, what unique features there are in there that like gives those opportunities for discovery, which is something that I love doing in Cinema 4D. Is like, you go into the menus and it's like, okay, I know where the deformers are, but like, what are all these other deformers? Let's try those out. And so once you teach that way, and then it's like, okay, that's where that tool is. Shortcut key is this. But like, okay, so you know where that is just in case you forget where the shortcut key is. So that's why I really like this course, is because like, man, my head hurts just even learning the shortcuts for like the gizmo.
Yeah.
and you show in this course where it's like, here's actually a gizmo that has all the things that you can click and move, and you don't have to use any of the shortcut keys at all. So
yeah, I think lesson 1, we set it up to work like Cinema, to give you a really soft landing. So it's not just like, welcome to the
Thunderdome.
Yeah. Hope you like hotkeys, idiot. But no, I mean, that, and to your point, I am a much more robust Blender user and know a lot more about Blender just from being asked super annoying questions while I was filming things. So by you. So that's great.
I was very annoying.
Yeah. And Blender does have a feature where you can right click anything, any button, any line item, anything, and it will take you straight to the documentation, which is awesome.
Yeah. So, which I didn't even know about, because that's one of the things I love about Cinema 4D is like, you right click, show help, and you can dive deeper. And so, yeah, like Blender, like, I think that's super cool they did that, because it's again, one of those things where you know enough about Blender at the end of this course to kind of figure out like, okay, what do I want to do next? Where do I want to dive deeper into? And you can do that on your own. But I think it's important to figure out, what are the strengths of Blender and what are the things that you want to continue to do? And then you can go and do that. Now, as far as, we're talking about Blender strengths and stuff. What are your favorite features in Blender that like you think really helps it stand out? I mean, we talk about grease pencils. I feel like it's a huge obvious one, but or some maybe not so obvious ones.
I'm gonna get hate for, well, it's Blender. I'm gonna get hate for anything, whatever. I love the graph editor. I think it's way better than any graph editor I've used. I really like the mobility of it. I feel like once you get the way that it works, it's very agile. You can add modifiers in there. It's just a really great graph editor. I like the rigging tools. I like how quickly you can set something up to animate. The barrier of entry is pretty low for that. And something that I think is huge, anything that you are doing that you're like, I wish there was an easy button for, you can either assign the easy button for it or go on Blender Market and pay some guy $15 for an easy button. And that's the best. I'll pay $15 to not have to keep doing the same task over and over again. That's great. I think the open source component of Blender is outrageously good.
Yeah, I think that's one thing I hear time and time again, is that open source and all the cool plugins and all the development and stuff. And one of the nice things about in this course, like you basically share like, here's all my like favorite add-ons and stuff like that. So like, yeah, by the end of it, you can kind of get introduced to that side of the world, because I feel like that's just as important as learning Blender, is like, what are the things that, like what are those easy buttons? So I'm not doing the same repetitive things over and over and over again, and can really get your workflow singing.
And because it's open source and you have geometry nodes, kind of what we were talking about previously, where there are things that Blender can't do that Cinema can. you can get Blender to do it. It might not want to do it. You might have to really just beat it with a baseball bat to get it there. But pretty much anything you could dream up, you could recreate in Blender. It just might be a longer walk to get there.
Yeah, I mean things like clay pencil. Have you seen that? The clay pencil.
That's crazy.
Oh my gosh.
I haven't had the chance to play with it yet.
So yeah, so I don't know if you're more qualified to talk about what the heck it is, but it's basically like a grease pencil-y type of thing that works with geometry nodes. That is like a new thing that you can control grease pencil with geometry nodes.
Yeah, I don't know enough to not sound like an idiot, but I think you hit it on the head. You can now use grease pencil strokes in the geometry node editor, which obviously, well, maybe not obviously, if you don't know what geometry nodes or grease pencil is, but to those who do, it's obviously really cool because you get a lot of control over hand drawn strokes, and you can use that as a base for geometry.
Well, and we'll link to the demo, but the demo, it's like you draw a grease pencil stroke and then it automatically generates a mesh. So it's like you're modeling with like a sketch, and it's like live, and it's like pretty crazy.
It's nuts. It's really cool. I'm excited to use it.
On that lines of like, okay, there's all these add-ons, all this stuff, like Blender's constantly updating. What are you excited about? Like, I don't know how far down the like development pipeline that you know what Blender development, where it's going and stuff, but like what excites you about the future of Blender? Like if someone's going to take this course and invest in it, like what are some things that people can kind of get excited about that's coming down the pike for features and stuff?
Yeah. I mean, I've only been in Blender for a couple of years, and already I've seen them completely like rewrite 2 or 3 programs. They are so like keen on what the community wants. They have their ear to the ground. They listen to people. And they don't just like shove a bunch of legacyware in there that slows things down. I'm really excited, not about necessarily a specific feature, but I'm really excited about the fact that they listen and they continue to update the product with really helpful things. And of course that sometimes means you get like, it's 2023 and you're just getting light linking, but at least you have light linking now. So, it's kind of a slow walk on some of those features. And like you said, there are things that are like, oh, I can do this in Cinema so easily, but more than likely behind the scenes, they're working to create something. And if not, some dude in the middle of nowhere is developing a plugin for it. So, you'll get it sometime.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's land this plane. We've been going for like an hour and 20 minutes or so. I just want to, for people that might just be discovering you through this podcast, you want to plug what you're doing, where people can find you, your personal home address, your social security, whatever you want to.
Yeah. So I'll start with the credit card number. Okay. Right. No. Yes. I have a YouTube channel, a Sweet Boy Motion. I think that's what it's called. I post tutorials for.
Do you even know what?
I think it is. Yeah, it's Sweet Boy Motion. But I post tutorials for stylized Blender content. I do a lot of stuff with specifically like shader editing, all kinds of stuff there. My Instagram is also sweetboy.motion. I post a lot of fun content on there. Be sure to join, EJ in the comments, just pulling me apart on a personal level. That'll be really great. Constantly. Yeah, really bring it on. And yeah, if you're a studio and you need a freelancer, I'm freelance.
Boom.
So there we go. I'll plug myself as a freelancer.
He knows Blender, he knows Cinema 4D, he knows all the things. Yeah. And I love, like, congrats on launching your YouTube channel and stuff, because that's like a fairly new thing. And it's just been, all jokes aside, it's been really cool to get to know you and just like, I've been a fan of your style and just kind of learning Blender through you. It's something where I've been trying for so long to make sense of Blender, and like you finally helped me kind of have those aha moments and be able to do it in a style that like I really enjoy, which just happens to be like the kind of style that you dig with the stylized stuff. And and I'm excited to see your Christmas short coming out.
Yeah, Christmas short. That's gonna be good. Well, I mean, like I touched on earlier, dude, you taught me cinema way back in the day on YouTube, so I'm glad to return the favor even just a little bit. That's exciting.
Awesome. Love both ways. All right, we're all friends here, even though I say hateful things in your comments. But
in person, and we're friends in person.
Yeah, exactly. All right. Well, thank you so much, Elijah. It's been a pleasure chatting with you on this. Thanks for sharing all your expertise. And man, I'm so excited to get this course out for everyone. There's been so many people. I'm sure you mentioned that a lot of people are hitting you up to learn Blender. So they don't have to wait much longer. So it's super exciting. Thank you so much for joining us on this episode of the School of Motion podcast. And I want to thank our special guest, Elijah Sheffield, for sharing his expertise and insights into the wonderfully wide world of Blender and 3D animation. And I hope you've taken away some laughs and plenty of creative inspiration. And be sure to check out Elijah's work under Sweet Boy Motion and follow all of his antics online. If you're interested in learning Blender, be sure to check out our new Blender for 3D Artists course taught by the Sweet Boy himself. Head on over to schoolofmotion.com for more details. And as always, if you've enjoyed this episode, be sure to subscribe and leave us a review or share it with your friends and colleagues. And if you didn't like this episode, share it with your enemies. All right, I'm your host, EJ Hasenfratz. Until next time, keep on creating.